the charger's in my room, and it's like I think it might be on my bed. It's one of the flat one, the bigger flat one. Yeah. Okay.
Hare Krishna,
All right.
Hari Boy.
All right. Good news. My mom's going to get an extension cord, so we might be safe. She's gonna see if it'll shut out here. So but anyway, I just want to let you guys know that but yeah, all right, I'm gonna do the best I can. All right, so I'll go ahead and start. Oh my god, it's turned to Shagina Janash like a track should have been a time in that time. My she gonna be no. Namo Vishwabhadaya Krishna Saivata Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tiname Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Pratadine Nivishesha Shingavari Paschata Deshachani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaurapatamanya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Alright, Srimad Bhagavatam invocation. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatam vyasam tato jayamudhirayet. Nasta prashu bhajeshu nityam bhagavati sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. For send Shima Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer sacrifices on the personal account of Narayan, to Narayan, they should spirit being. Yes, that's it. And that's Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Okay, let me
It may not be long enough. You may have to reposition you.
Okay.
Oh wait, hold on. Here we go.
All right. So we're on Canto 2, Chapter 5, Text 25. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good.
Plug this in. Okay, so I just got the extension cord here, and I know technically, I'm supposed to leave this class. So Yamuna, would you mind reading the first verse while I get this plugged up? I'm really sorry.
All right, I can do that. Tamatsat apibu tarer vikurvanar abun nabaha. Tasya matra guna sabdo lingam ya drastir dris ya yoho. Or yohe.
I don't know if this plug. I haven't used it in a while. That's what I'm asking.
Okay.
Let me go get my charger.
From the darkness of false ego, the first of the 5 elements, namely the sky, is generated. Its subtle form is the quality of sound, exactly as the seer is in relationship with the seen. The purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai. The 5 elements, namely sky, air, fire, water, and earth, are all but different qualities of the darkness of false ego. This means that the false ego in the sum total form of Mahat Tattva is generated from the marginal potency of the Lord. And due to this false ego of lording it over the material creation, ingredients are generated for the false enjoyment of the living being. The living being is practically the dominating factor over the material elements as the enjoyer, though the background is the Supreme Lord. Factually, save and except the Lord, no one can be called the enjoyer, but the living entity falsely desires to become the enjoyer. This is the origin of false ego. When the bewildered living being desires this, the shadow elements are generated by the will of the Lord, and the living entities are allowed to run after them as after a phantasmagoria. It is said that first the Tan Matra sound is created, and then the sky, and in this verse it is confirmed that actually it is so. but sound is the subtle form of the sky, and the distinction is like that between the seer and the seen. The sound is the representation of the actual object, as the sound produced speaking of the object gives an idea of the description of the object. Therefore, sound is the subtle characteristic of the object. Similarly, sound representation of the Lord in terms of his characteristics is the complete form of the Lord, as was seen by Vasudeva and Maharaja Dasaratha, the fathers of Lord Krishna and Lord Rama. The sound representation of the Lord is non-different from the Lord himself, because the Lord and his representation in sound are absolute knowledge. Lord Chaitanya has instructed us that in the holy name of the Lord, as sound representation of the Lord, all the potencies of the Lord are invested. Thus, one can immediately enjoy the association of the Lord by the pure vibration of the sound representation of his holy name, and the concept of the Lord is immediately manifested before the pure devotee. A pure devotee, therefore, is not aloof from the Lord even for a moment. The holy name of the Lord, as recommended in the Shastras, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, may therefore be constantly chanted by the devotee aspiring to be constantly in touch with the Supreme Lord. One who is thus able to associate with the Lord is sure to be delivered from the darkness of the created world, which is a product of false ego. Tamasi ma jayotir gama. So, would you like to repeat the translation, Mataji Lavanga?
Yeah. Material activities are caused by the Mahatattvas being agitated. At first, there is transformation of the modes of goodness. Wait, sorry, I'm reading the wrong one.
You're reading the wrong text. Number
I'm reading
25.
text 23. Sorry, my phone skipped back 2 verses. I apologize for that.
Okay.
From the darkness of false ego, the first of the 5 elements, namely the sky, is generated. Its subtle form is the quality of sound, exactly as the seer is in relationship with the seen. All right, so good news. My tablet's charging, so I'm not gonna just disappear on you guys now.
Good.
I plugged it up, and then it wasn't wasn't working when I plugged it up, and so I grabbed another charger and then plugged that up, and then that finally started charging. But anyway, in this verse, it's discussing. Remember, we're discussing basically how the universe is being manifested by Brahma, because that's one of Narada's questions. And so here, from the darkness of the false ego, the first of the 5 elements, and the sky comes about. And the subtle form of that is the quality of sound. So in a lecture I was listening to today from Srila Prabhupada, he mentioned that without sky, there is no sound. And very much like this purport, he focused on the power of sound vibration. And he was saying that we have material sound and we have spiritual sound. And it is actually sound itself that causes our bondage in this material world or our liberation. And the effects of sounds can just be seen practically. The other day, yesterday actually, my grandfather, he came home from the hospital. And I wasn't very fortunate to be born in a family of devotees, but when everyone was gone and he was sitting in the house, because I've been watching after him and just to make sure he doesn't get up and stuff, I decided, gosh, this atmosphere is like, it's so like surcharged. There was just like a lot of heavy tamagoon going on because usually the TV's blaring all day. So I just said, give me these controls. Nobody's in the house, and my grandfather can't speak, or he can, but he can only speak very little. And so I got the controls, flipped on YouTube, and turned on Kirtan. And just because I wanted to see, like what would happen, I wanted there to be some positive, like sound vibration. And so Prabhupada's mentioning here how in this purport by the chanting, you can actually, you come in contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I let that Maha Mantra play for about 20 minutes. And immediately the atmosphere was just uplifted. Like all the heaviness in the atmosphere just disappeared. All the stress that we had been going through, all the anxiety that we had been going through just melted away. And after about 30 minutes, my grandfather, who barely speaks, looked up at me and says, "Who is this group?" and smiled. And he was really into it. So even the sound vibration was affecting him. And I've been trying to do this more because the doctors have already told us that, the prognosis is not good. So we know he doesn't have much more time with us. And so I've been trying to do as much as possible to help him in his transition. Uh, you know, hopefully, to a devotee birth or a better destination. But I just wanted to give that example because we read a lot about, the power of sound vibration. And, we hear Prabhupada talk about the power of the Maha Mantra. But to take notes of how it actually affects us, in our everyday life, that generates faith. And you see that, wow, like this stuff, it isn't just theoretical, it's actually real. And also just a counterpoint. On the other, yesterday I came out here, or on the other hand, I should say, I came out here and my neighbors, they were playing this other like type of music that I don't even know what to call it. And immediately like the consciousness was being brought down. And so this sound vibration, it's like I was just like, wow, it really is true how this stuff affects us. And so Prabhupada mentioning that this sound vibration, it ultimately can cause our bondage or cause our liberation. And this is just with music. But it's often said, if you hang out with people who are they gossip a lot, then you will start doing the same thing. If you hang out with people who curse a lot, then you'll start doing the same thing. Even these types of sound vibrations, they have an effect on us. And so that's why in the association of devotees, when we're discussing Shrimad Bhagavatam, or when we're discussing these topics of just how to make spiritual advancement, immediately you feel the difference in consciousness. And even when I was hanging out with some devotee friends the other day, that they came up here and we were all hanging out, and just to have that experience of being in their presence, connecting everything to Krishna, it was so uplifting for the consciousness. There was such a difference in the sound vibration than when I'm like here all day. And it was just so easy to be Krishna conscious in that atmosphere, even though most of the time we were just talking about how life is going. But I noticed the difference in this is because the devotee, or one that's practicing spiritual life, because their consciousness is higher, they will connect things to Krishna consciousness. They'll connect it back. So if there's a problem going on, ultimately they're going to connect it back so that you think of Krishna, so that you remember Krishna. And so these things have such a powerful effect on us, and we can't underestimate them, because immediately, the moment we stop doing it, it'll bring us down. Our one time, uh, very advanced Vaishnava once said, I'd, I'd ask the question how somebody could give up spiritual life. And they told me, stop chanting and see how fast it happens. And one of the things that can be observed is that when somebody has, all of a sudden has no interest in Krishna consciousness anymore, the first thing that tends to go is that, they will stop. They'll stop with the sound vibration first. And they'll put other sound vibration in their ear. And then they'll develop a desire towards those things. So, let me see if there was something else I wanted to bring up in this purport. So yeah, but that was the lecture that I heard today, and I thought it went along with this verse very well. Um, and Prabhupada ended it like he ends a lot of his classes. Remember that this sky that we have here is temporary, and beyond this sky, there is a spiritual sky. So Prabhupada always ends his classes with the ultimate point. So this sky is temporary sky, but beyond this sky, there is spiritual sky. And in this spiritual sky, it is produced by Omkar and Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So don't focus so much on this sky, focus on the sky after the sky. And he ended like this, and chant Hare Krishna and go back to Godhead and thank you very much. And everybody's like, Jai, Srila Prabhupada, Hare Krishna. And so I just wanted to give these few practical, just practical examples of how sound vibration can affect us, how I've seen it throughout my week. And I can attest that from experience that without this Maha Mantra, I'd be going a lot more crazy because of everything that's going on right now. A devotee once told me when I joined, he said, serious devotees in Krishna consciousness tend to be the most stable people in their family in times of crisis. And that is true if you're holding on to the Maha Mantra. Because when you take that time out to go and chant like very attentively, Krishna's just right there. Maybe not, you can't see him right there in front of you, but you feel it. The anxiety starts lifting. You feel a little bit more peaceful. You're getting a little bit more off the material platform. And it's true. Like this process really does work. If you take like just 5 minutes and get away from it all and just really focus on the Maha Mantra, immediately you notice this change in vibration and immediately you can start to think clearly again. So yeah, I thought I would throw that out there because my realization so far on this verse. And I would like to hear from you now if there's any more realizations that you might have, and anything you would like to add. It was a very long purport, and I appreciate that it was a very long purport because it gave me time for adjusting all of this. So.
Yes, yes. Hare Krishna. I just wanted to add that it's very interesting that here it states that the Tanmatra sound is created first, even before the sky, like it's the first thing in existence. And I just wanted to point out that it is also the last thing at the end when all of our senses are fading away, when we're leaving our body. The last sense that is actually active is hearing the sounds, which of course is why the devotees like to chant Hare Krishna around people who are leaving their body, because it's the last sense to leave is the sense of hearing. So so life begins with sound and ends with sound, which
Infrasound,
is,
yeah, that's so
yes,
true. And you can
yes,
see that in real time too. If you take care of somebody that's leaving their body, they'll stop eating, they'll stop drinking, they'll stop speaking, but they can still give indications that they can hear you.
yes,
So very true.
yes. And
Um,
and not only that, but the very first part of the purport that speaks about the false ego, about how we think we are controlling in the material world when we really aren't. It just brings more emphasis to the fact that this type of existence is like illusion. We think we're doing something that we really are not doing. It's really outside of our control, and Krishna is very merciful and will let us think that we are enjoying and will give us the things that we ask for or that we look for. But in reality, it's all under his control. And so this idea that we are the ones in control is totally false, the false ego. So so that's all I wanted to say. Those 2 points. If Amy would like to add her words now, that would be fine.
Go ahead, Amy.
Sorry, apparently it is one of those days because everything's a little bit too slow today. I couldn't find the mouse. I couldn't find the mouse to like unmute myself and oh my God. So, I just wanted to add to that that for me, I first of all, I love that your that your grandfather asked you like which band is that? So I'm pretty happy that he liked the band. Like he was oh, who's this group? I would like to know, because they were chanting Hare Krishna and it made maybe it made him feel uplifted and happy and all those beautiful things that the Maha Mantra makes us feel. So it's great that you gave him that experience of rich, beautiful music with the mantra. And I also wanted to mention that I'm very happy to find this verse here because one of the things that I practice is actually sound healing therapy. And that's exactly the principle that we work with, the fact that sound is divine actually, and that sound the notes of music actually come from the sun, which is Krishna as well. So, or Savitur in the Gayatri mantra. And because of that, as a sound healer, that's one of the things that we do. Of course, I play the sound healing bowls, which each bowl has one of the notes, and we also do prayers before we start playing the bowls so that we can um, help people heal themselves um, as a channel or something, because we're not the ones doing the healing, obviously. But it's a beautiful thing that I found this here because it speaks of the sound and what is the quality of the sound, and the that the Lord is in the sound when it's in the Maha Mantra as well. So and depending on what it is that you're listening to, it affects you. So I just wanted to add that commentary. That's all. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, actually, you brought up something that made me think of another point. When I first read the verse, I read the verse prior to class, and you mentioned sound healing, and back in the day, uh, for healing people, they had like mantras. They would heal snake bite by mantra, but then also, when before modern technology and all this, when people were leaving their bodies, oftentimes they would set up these places where there was like peaceful water flowing and like nice classical sounding music in the background to help people make people more peaceful. So even on the material, like even on this like material level, the sound vibration, um can actually, help heal the body. I mean, they do this for like therapy and stuff like that for different mental illnesses. So this is on the material level. And I know you can probably confirm this. Like classical music is definitely a higher vibration than anything else out there. But on like, but then for like transcendental things, and this is the thing about the Maha Mantra, the material sound vibrations, they might be useful for helping us heal the body, and things like this. But this is why the Maha Mantra is so powerful, is because ultimately one has to transcend all that. One can be made more peaceful by certain sound vibrations. One might be able to heal certain mental things going on by certain sound vibrations. But at the end of the day, the material body is temporary. The mind is temporary. So then, you know, what happens after that? There's a Maharaj, Swayam Bhagavan Keshava Maharaj. He started a lecture once by saying, we spend so much time preparing how to live a good life in this life, but hardly ever do we prepare for what's going to happen later. And you can see this in how a lot of people live. They save for retirements, but they don't think about what's gonna happen when the body breaks down and they have to be taken care of full time, because nobody wants to think about that. Nobody wants to think about the moment that they have to leave the body. But ultimately, the body is like an apartment. And what happens with apartments is, they break down eventually. And you can do things to remodel them. Just like with the body, you can do things to heal it. You can replace certain organs, things like this. But at the end of the day, sometimes, or like, I guess they say a car is a better example. You fix up a car, but it gets to a point that you fix it and then something else goes wrong. And then you have to do that. And it gets to the point that it's just cheaper to get a new car. So the body being also like the vehicle for the soul, when it gets to the point that it is no longer inhabitable, the soul leaves it. So this is why they say in Bhagavad Gita, never was a time when I did not exist, nor you nor all these kings. Not Krishna says to Arjuna. But see, for the soul generally, if they're not prepared, if you just spend all this time, doing positive sound vibration just for making your mind feel more peaceful or for healing the body, things like this. Of course, these things should be done. But if you don't spend time becoming fearless in the face of death, then ultimately, when you get to the very end, then you're going to get kind of like bewildered or feel like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I'm seeing it personally with certain family members, like they haven't prepared. So it's always like Bhagavatam says, the devotee should aspire for living a simple and a healthy life. So there are things we do to keep ourselves healthy. And we should keep ourselves healthy as long as possible to do as much service as possible. But with that said, if we don't also prepare, do that transcendental sound vibration, then when you get to that point, then you're just gonna be like, oh my God, what's going on? Everything's so bewildering, and you're gonna try to hang on to this and hang on to that. And it's nothing is going to work. And so that's when we the Maha Mantra, it gets us off this bodily platform, and immediately we feel a humble must be, I am spirit. So when it's time to ultimately give up this body, like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the soul is not bewildered by such a change. The soul is not bewildered by this change of body. So so we want to get to that point as well. You keep the body as healthy as possible while you are alive. Do some healing, whatever you have to do so you can serve Krishna. But at the end, we also want to be prepared for this moment that it's like, okay, my car is not working anymore. It's time to get a new model. So, all right, it's time now for me to ultimately go back to my spiritual body, hopefully, or go wherever Krishna wants me to serve next. So the greatest thing that we can actually achieve is to get to that point in life and be like, okay, I'm good. Krishna, like wherever you want to take me, because it's I'm seeing firsthand that it's not easy. And it's very easy to think when you're young that okay, I got this spiritual life thing going, and like I'm gonna remember God, I'm gonna remember Krishna at the time of death. But it's not it's not so easy when you have all these things going on. But there's hope. Because for one who just keeps on with the practice. I've seen like Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj who had cancer in the body. I don't know if you know who that is. You might know who that is. They said, like when he was like leaving his body, he was cancer is very painful, but he was in such a blissful state because he kept that transcendental sound vibration going. I don't know if you guys can still hear me. There's military jets flying overhead. Okay, all right. Air Force Base, but but that's a
Interesting.
so yeah, that's the goal. We want that's we want to have this transcendental sound vibration to come off this bodily platform. And it's very rare in Kali Yuga to have this opportunity to be able to chant Hare Krishna and attain the most intimate, loving exchanges with the Supreme Personality of Godhead too. So we've been given this rare, very very rare gift that you don't get in every single Kali Yuga. So we're also very fortunate in that way as well. Um. All right.
Wasn't Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj a Swami that was a psychologist?
Psychologist. I'm
I
not
think he
sure. I
was
know
he
he
graduated
studied.
from Princeton, I think.
Yeah, he graduated from Princeton.
And he did a speech about Hare Krishna movement and Nelson Mandela. I remember because I think I translated that for into Spanish for the
Yeah,
Eastern group here.
yeah, that's who he is, and he did a lot for spreading Christian consciousness in
I
Africa.
love that interview about him. Yes, he's great
But
Maharaj.
one thing about his program is that he used to wake up at midnight. He used to wake up at midnight and chant his rounds, and he would chant until Mangalarti, and then he would do japa period. Of course, he's a sannyasi, and it's not maybe practical for many people to imitate this, but it's it's to show how connected he was with the Maha Mantra. And we can see the result and how he left his body as well. So going back to sound vibration. All right. Anybody else have anything they would like to add? All right. So I'll see what time is it. 5:43 I got. Okay. So we'll go ahead and go to the next verse then. Let's see, 26 now.
Yes.
Okay.
26 through 29.
All right, so the Sanskrit for this is quite long. So if you guys don't mind for this, I'm going to skip it and just go to the translation. Because the sky is transformed, the air is generated with the quality of touch. And by previous succession, the air is also full of sound and the basic principles of duration of life, sense perception, mental power, and bodily strength. When the air is transformed in due course of time, and nature's course, fire is generated, taking shape with the sense of touch and sound. Since fire is also transformed, there is a manifestation of water, full of juice and taste. As previously, it also has form and touch, and is also full of sound. And water, being transformed from all variegatedness on earth, appears odorous, and, as previously, becomes qualitatively full of juice, touch, sound, and form, respectively. Purport. The whole process of creation is an act of gradual evolution and development from one element to another, reaching up to the variegatedness of the earth as so many trees, plants, mountains, rivers, reptiles, birds, animals, and varieties of human beings. The the quality of sense perception is also evolutionary, namely generated from sound and touch, and from touch to form. Taste and odor are also generated along with the gradual development of sky, air, fire, water, and earth. They are all mutually the cause and effect of one another. But the original cause is the Lord Himself in plenary portion, as Mahavishnu lying in the causal water of the Mahatattva. As such, Lord Krishna is described in the Brahma Samhita as the cause of all causes. And this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10:8 as follows: Aham sarvasya prabhavo matah sarvam pravartate iti matva vedante mam buddhabhavasama. The qualities of sense perception are fully represented in the earth, and they are manifested in other elements to a lesser extent. In the sky, there is sound only, whereas in the air, there are sound and touch. In the fire, there are sound, touch, and shape. And in the water, there is taste. Also, along with the other perceptions, namely sound, touch, and shape. In the earth, however, there are all the above mentioned qualities with an extra development of odor also. Therefore, on the earth, there is a full display of variegatedness of life, which is originally started with the basic principle of air. Diseases of the body take place due to derangement of air within the earthly body of the living beings. Mental diseases result from special derangement of the air within the body, and as such, yogic exercise is especially beneficial to keep the air in order so that the diseases of the body become almost nil by such exercises. When they are properly done, the duration of life also increases, and one can have control over death by such practices. A perfect yogi can have command over death and quit the body at the right moment, when he is competent to transfer himself to a settled planet. The bhakti yogi, however, surpasses all the yogis, because by dint of his devotional service, he is promoted to the region beyond the material sky and is placed in one of the planets in the spiritual sky by the supreme will of the Lord, the controller of everything. Okay, so because the sky is transformed, the air is generated with the quality of touch, and by previous succession, the air is also full of sound and the basic principles of duration of life, sense perception, mental power, and bodily strength. When the air is transformed in course of time and nature's course, fire is generated, taking shape with the sense of touch and sound. Since fire is also transformed, there is a manifestation of water, full of juice and taste. As previously, it, it also has form and touch and is also full of sound. And water, being transformed from all variegatedness on earth, appears odorous, and as previously, becomes qualitatively full of juice, touch, sound, and form, respectively. So, this verse here is explaining the evolution of how these different elements take place, from sound to touch to fire and form, and how each one contains a little bit of the previous one. So, in this purport, Prabhupada also mentions the whole process of creation is an act of gradual evolution and development from one element to another, reaching up to the very giddiness of the earth, as so many trees, plants, mountains, rivers, reptiles, birds, animals, and varieties of human beings. So, not only is this material like manifestation taking shape gradually, but also there's different species of animals and different plants. So there's a piranha, and I can't remember the name of it at the time. Of course, it's not so important for our understanding, but it will talk about how many varieties of birds there are, how many varieties of fish there are, and things like this. And so for the Jiva soul, there is also a gradual evolutionary process. Um, from we can go from animal forms to plant forms to human forms, ultimately up to human forms. And then that's where we have the most independence. With animals, they just have the basic desires: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And so, therefore, animals, for their actions, they don't get karma. And so each species has a particular type of independence. So we see, as I mentioned before, humans, they have the most. Cats, dogs, a little less. And then plants, a little less than the cats and dogs, right? Because the plants kind of just sit there. They can't move um or can't engage, can't interact too much. So the living entity, when you take birth and like say for like a plant species, gradually you'll move up, and then you can get into like the animal species, and then you get into the animal species, and then gradually you move up from there, and then ultimately you can come to the human form of life. However, this can be interrupted if you happen to be like a dog or a cat that gets prasadam or hears the Maha Mantra. Then you can get a much higher birth, the birth in the devotee family. But when you get up to the human form of life, you still have all the base desires that the animals have, but you have one extra thing, and this is called intelligence. So we can see as the evolution happens with the material creation, so this same evolution is also taking place with the jiva soul. So from this human birth, you can either transcend, or you can go back into the other species forms. So when you hear the word evolution, according to the Vedas, this is what real evolution is: the birth in the different species. Um, so we see like one example of you can see one example of getting special mercy, like in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. One of Lord Chaitanya's associates, Shivananda Sain, they were all going to, I believe it was Jagannath Puri at this time, and a dog started following them. And in India, they don't keep dogs in houses. Dogs were considered like very dirty animals in this time. They just kept them outside. But still, Shivananda Sain saw this dog, and he thought, okay, let's take care of it. And so he brought the dog along with him, the party. And even when they had to cross a river, the boatman didn't want to let the dog on, because dog had diseases, different things. The dog's not getting on this boat with us. So Shivananda Sain paid paid extra money, extra tax to allow this dog to get on the boat with them. And so the dog crossed, and then one day Shivananda Sain couldn't find the dog, and he became, very distraught, because Shivananda Sain was arranging, all the proper accommodations for everybody. So he was even taking care of the dog. So one day when he couldn't find the dog to give the dog his rice, he goes everywhere looking for the dog, and then he finds the dog sitting next to Lord Chaitanya. And he's telling, and Lord Chaitanya is telling him, chant Hare Krishna, chant, the dog's chanting Hare Krishna. So therefore, even dogs, cats, they're all spirit souls, they're all parcels of Krishna. But they don't have the same ability to be able to contemplate into the absolute truth like humans do. However, when they come in touch with a devotee or with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that bhakti can also be brought out, or that they can also make further advancement in their path. And Lord Chaitanya, because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when he was walking through the Jharkhand forest, even he was bringing out Prima Bhakti, pure love of Krishna, and the tigers, and the other different animals, and they were all dancing, and then they were all chanting Hare Krishna, and they were all, extremely happy, because of his potency as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was able to bring them out of this, to bring them out of this illusion of dog and cat and tiger body, whatever it was. So, why am I bringing all this up? So ultimately, so that we remember and we don't take for granted our human form of life that we have, to even have this ability to contemplate on these things is really a gift. And it can be taken for granted, but we have to understand that, we've been put in this position and by Krishna's mercy ultimately. And so we should make good use of it. Because something could happen. You never know what could happen in your next life that you might not have the ability to do what you're doing now. And even in this life, people get brain damage, and they can't study or they can't do what they previously could do before. So one should take advantage of this human form of life. And even scientifically, human form of life is so rare. I mean, you talk to, I think I brought this up in a previous class, but you talk to any doctors about how human life forms, they'll tell you it really is a miracle that that someone gets pregnant and that they're able to be able to carry the full term and they're able to have a healthy baby and that baby is scientifically it's pretty miraculous. So that correlates with what the Vedas say, that human form of life is very rare. So that's why Prahlad Maharaj in the seventh canto, he was urging, his classmates, from this point on, take spiritual life very seriously. And they were thinking they had all the time in the world. He said, no, now is the time because now the mind is fresh. Now we've come to this point in the evolution. That we're in this human form of life. And so in any other form of life, you can enjoy these things to higher extents. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Prabhupada would make this point. If you want to eat a whole lot, an elephant can eat much more than you can. It eats 82 pounds, something. How much can you eat? If you want to sleep, there are other animals that can do that much better than you can. And so forth and so forth. And you can imagine and you can deduct, pick your sense gratification from eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And I guarantee you will find an animal that can do it much better than a human can. Of course, these things, we have to maintain the body and stuff like that. And it's not that, these things, eating, sleeping, and mating and defending, they're just like they don't exist and we ignore them. However, the Srimad Bhagavatam, though, is meant for showing us that these things are ultimately not the goal of life. And this is why it's explaining this process of evolution of the material creation. This is how the sound comes, the sky, the touch, the fire, the form, and then the different animals. So you can kind of understand, where we're at. We can understand what's going on, and then we can also know what's beyond it, so that we don't become bewildered. We're seeing here now how this temporary manifestation is unwinding, right? It's unwinding, and then later you're going to hear about how the different living entities are being populated into it. And then we know at a certain point that this material manifestation will wind back up. like a circus. They bring it out, they set it up, everybody plays, they have a good time, and they ask to go back in. Or you play, you suffer, you go on the rides, you throw up, you get sick, things like this. And then, they had to wrap the circus back up, and then it's gone. And then at a later date, it comes back out. You know, I believe they have that, Amy, down at Malecon, they have that, like, Ferris wheel and, like, different rides that go round, and you can buy ice cream and things like there. I don't know if they have that year. I don't know if they have that year round. I went there
I
once.
think so. I think they do because it's always open. It's always there, just at night.
It's always it's always okay. Yeah. So they have that out there, and people go. They enjoy. They enjoy the rides. They suffer. You know. They eat too much food. Bad for them. They get in a fight with their boyfriend or girlfriend over there. Drama. All different things going on. So you can see this is how the material world is going on. And then at a certain point, I'm sure they close that at a certain point. Maintenance, hurricane comes, whatever. So that's what we're doing in this. That's what this material world is, on like a grand scale. And then at some point, it's wrapped up. So the Bhagavatam is like a map. Like an amusement park, you have a map that says you are here. And then, all right, so Bhagavatam is doing that for us. You are here. Okay? So from here, you can either go back to here, or you can stay right here, or you can just get out of this. And Bhagavatam is showing you in different ways how you don't want to stay right here and you don't want to go back here. So
It's like, can I fast forward to the end and out with
yeah,
the Bhagavatam?
exactly like that. So wait, I just dropped my phone, so I can't remember my next point. But anyway, I think you guys understand this. So in a very scientific way, as all of this is being explained to us, so that we don't become bewildered by this manifestation. We understand how it is created, what its cause is, what our position is in it, and what we can do about it. So, if somebody else would like to make some comments, they're more than welcome. I'm gonna grab my phone that just went across the floor, and give me just 1 second.
I just wanted to say sorry if I broke your mental flow. But I wanted to just like say that the Purana that I think you were trying to make reference to, where the species are spoken about, is the Matsya Purana. That was what I was going to say. If Yamuna has something to say about the comments that Lavanga Devidasi made, or the verse or anything.
That's it, by the way.
Good, good. No, actually, I don't have anything else to add, but maybe Mukunda Prabhu has something to add.
Hare Krishna, please accept my most humble obeisances. Of glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Lavanga, my beautiful and amazing wife, for giving us amazing lecture. So I just have a question. May I make a question?
Yes, you can ask a question.
Okay, if you go to the test, you can see where the Prabhupada explain the living being is practically the dominant factor of the material element in his capacity as the enjoyer. Although the background is the Supreme Lord. In fact, except for the Lord, no one can be called the enjoyer. But the living entity falsely desires to become the enjoyer. that is the origin of the false ego. So it's gonna mean, this is my question, that the false ego in a living entity is produced when we think that we are the enjoyer, or there is other thing that we have to be in mind.
Okay, yeah, I think I understand your question. Yeah. So when the living entity wants to enjoy, then they identify with the false ego. And this is called false ego because this is thinking I am something other than servant of Krishna. So then therefore then the living entity identifies with the false ego, and then they think that they are the dominant enjoyer in this world. So they think, oh, I am enjoying this, I am enjoying that, but they can't understand that they're not the unlimited enjoyer. Because, for example, if you're eating something, you can only eat so much of that thing before you become sick, right? You have to give it up.
Yeah.
Or if you're doing any other thing, any other activity, you can only do so much of it before you have to do something else. But the reason why Krishna is the ultimate enjoyer is because Krishna can do everything unlimitedly. And he can do everything all at once. He's in Goloka Vrindavan, and then at the same time, in his expansion of Mahavishnu, he's sleeping on the Kashmir Ocean. None of us can sleep and play at the same time. So Krishna is ultimately the ultimate enjoyer. We think that we are the dominant. We think that we are the main enjoyer, but we can only enjoy to a little bit capacity within this material world. But Krishna gives us independence to do that. So it's out of our false ego we think that we are doing that. But actually, as Bhagavad Gita says, Prakriti Kriyamanani Guna Karmani. Oh gosh. Yeah. That we think the living entity thinks, I'll say the translation, thinks that they are the doer of these activities, but actually they're under the control of the modes of material nature. So it's the modes while they're trying to enjoy, they're enjoying really what they're trying to enjoy is in a particular mode. Okay, it's the mode of passion that's forcing them to try to enjoy in this way, or it's a combination of the mode of passion and ignorance that's pulling them to enjoy in this way or that way, like a puppet on a string. But Krishna doesn't have any of these like factors or influences. Yeah. And also there's no, like I said before, there's no limit to that. So what makes the living entity want to do this? It's the identification with the false ego. So does this answer your question?
Thank you. Very nice answer.
Can I
Good?
piggyback on that question?
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Because I was wondering, like, because sometimes since we're in this material body and we do enjoy things, like if I like an ice cream, I'm enjoying the ice cream.
Right.
Is there like a way that we can detach from that without thinking that I'm like attaching to the false ego and thinking that I'm the ultimate enjoyer of the ice cream, for example?
Okay, yeah, good question. Well, you take that ice cream and you offer that ice cream to Krishna. And when you eat that ice cream, you think, oh, how Krishna must have enjoyed this ice cream. So you're there, I'm eating Krishna's prasad, think like this. Oh, this is Krishna's mercy, think like this. And also with attachment, one thing that we have to understand with attachment is with attachment, you feel like, okay, I have to have this thing or I cannot be happy. Right? So it's like, okay, I have to go get this ice cream now. Some people are like that. I've got a craving for ice cream. I gotta have it at this moment. But if first of all, you start getting rid of this attachment, like I said before, offering that ice cream to Krishna and taking it as his mercy, taking it as his prasadam. Thank you, Krishna. You have given me your prasadam. I appreciate this so much. so fortunate in my life, I've gotten this mercy like this. And so, yeah, of course, she might enjoy the ice cream. But for the devotee, it's not that the devotee doesn't enjoy, but the devotee is not thinking, okay, I have to have this particular type of material enjoyment to be happy in my life. The devotee is just thinking, in what situation can I serve Krishna? So it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to offer Krishna some ice cream today. Okay, Krishna, all right, ice cream's good. you know, but then it's like, okay, it's not that, okay, well, today, I gotta have ice cream or I'm not doing any type of service. But like that, like that. So, and that goes with everything in life. When you get to third canto in Bhagavatam, you're going to read about the story of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. And Kardama Muni and Devahuti had a 7-story palace that was created from Kardama Muni's mystic yogic potency. And they were flying around. And Prabhupada mentions in this story that Kardama Muni was enjoying without attachment. Like he did what he had to do. He was a progenitor. He created nice progeny. But at the end, when it was time for him to give all that up, he was able to give all that up. So that was the test. Does this help you?
Yes, that's perfect. That was exactly what I was hoping that you would answer. It was a very rich answer. Thank you so much.
And to clarify that, the reason why they were able to give all that up, because both Devahuti they both attained perfection, was because throughout their life they were engaging in devotional service. So yes, there was enjoyment there, but they were engaging in devotional service, so they didn't have these like attachments. Versus when you're doing it just for me, then you become attached, then you become entangled. All right. I think we are actually way past time.
But Mukunda had another question. At least let him ask his question before we go.
We started a little late today, so is that okay, Yamuna? Okay. All right, go ahead, Mukunda.
So according to the purpose by Srila Prabhupada, the verse was the 2525, right? Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, I think so. Verse.
2 point, yeah. The current one that we were just on was 2526 through 29.
Oh, okay. Well, so the felt ego, then we have to consider that this is the first thing in the material creation or something else.
The false ego?
Yeah.
All right, hold on. Let me go back a few verses.
What about sound vibration? The first thing immaterial
Yeah,
creation,
I was gonna go back a few verses to read
which
that.
we discussed at the beginning of the class.
Yeah. So yeah, we talked about at the very beginning of the class before he was here in verse 25 how from the very beginning it's sound.
Yeah, the sound. Okay.
Sound.
Thank you.
So it's sound that comes first. All right. Thank you all for staying. Usually I'm more punctual, but it's one of those days.
Yeah. There is one announcement that tomorrow Manonatha Maharaj will be giving a class at Govinda's Veggie Garden. So if you tune into ISKCON Puerto Rico at 6:30 in the evening, you'll be able to follow along.
Okay. ISKCON Puerto Rico at 6:30 in the evening. It'll be on the Facebook page.
Yes, on their Facebook page.
All right, awesome. I'll be there.
Great.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for all coming. Paula, nice to see you. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mukunda, for coming, even though I know you're giving a class right now.
Thank you.
All right.
Manunatha
Krishna.
Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai, Jai,
And
Srila
Srila
Prabhupada.
Prabhupada
Ki
Ki
Jai.
Jai.
Jai. See you
Haribol.
next week.
Next
Hare
week.
Krishna.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna.